Hey, this is Bob Fighter. Well, guess what? I'm in your head, and you're also listening to InYourHeadOnline.com. Listen to it, or Bob is going to show you all his stuff.
All right, we're back, and we're joined by Scotty Riggs. Welcome to In Your Head.
Oh, in my head or in your head?
In everyone's head.
Oh, we're getting in the fans' head now. That's cool, man. Hey, welcome. Welcome to my humble abode in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
So how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, bro. Doing really good.
Okay.
Got a lot of things going, so it's all coming into play.
I think we got a call.
So, yeah. Already got a call in?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, someone's calling. Who is this?
Yeah, this is Dude, the wrestling machine. I was going to wait for the cue. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right, man.
Hey, if you don't interrupt, you don't get involved.
Yeah,
right? You know?
Right. How you been?
I'm doing good, man. Doing real good.
I had a two-part question. Is that okay?
Yeah. That's fine by me. As long as...
Thanks for answering for me.
All right. The first question is, what do you feel is the greatest moment in your career?
Wow. Dude, that's like trying to sum up, my favorite grain of sand at the beach you don't have. I don't know. Can I give you like maybe 3 answers to that question?
All right.
I can't say there's one because after 12, 13 years, it's hard to really drill it down to one, but I guess if I have to put it to one, I'll just say my Heatwave 2000 pay-per-view match with RVD. Just because, there was a chance to be outside the box away from the stereotype and the BS that was in WCW at the time. It was a chance to work with a good friend of mine who I've known for a long time. And plus the fact that whole show was out in L.A., ECW, first time out there, and plus it was a semi-main event on the pay-per-view, so got to prove a lot of naysayers wrong with that match. So, that, I guess you say, is probably the highlight. That one right there would be it. Close second would be me and Raven at World War III.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah. So those two right there are neck and neck.
Okay, and do you still watch wrestling now on TV?
I get a chance to check it out every now and then. I mainly watch it, I'm still a fan of the wrestling. I'm not a fan of the entertainment aspect of it. Let's just say that much. I think, it's always fun to keep up with my friends, RVD, and, like, just to see what they're doing on the show, maybe what they come up with, just as that much of a fan, I'll say, yeah, but as somebody to tune in and actually see what's happening and to keep up with the quote-unquote storylines and stuff, not much involved in that, but it's just to watch my friends and see how they're doing and how creative they're being nowadays.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, man. You've been a great answer here, so I wish you the best in life, and I will continue to...
Well, hey, I appreciate it, man. I'm just glad you called in so quickly and asked 2 great questions, so hey, right back at you.
Yeah. Doesn't make us look like amateurs.
Hey, at least you knew how to just bolt in there, man. That's one thing I like about fans nowadays. They're not afraid to ask anything, and just the fact that he jumped in there in the mix and said, hey, I got 2 questions right now. Boom.
Right. Well, speaking of that, next we have another call.
Take that. Oh, damn, keep this up.
Who's this?
I'm digging it.
This is the American Dream, Jason Dag.
Okay.
The American Dream.
Yes, the American Dream, baby.
You got to work on your lips just a little bit more there, yo. I had a pleasure of working with Dusty and TCW for about a year. I got to hit that lift every day almost. So you just got to work a little bit more lift. I think you might have it down.
Well, you got a question anyway?
Yeah, my question is, what's your opinion of Steve Corino? Because you and him had some time together in ECW, teaming up with the network, and even had a couple matches together, right?
Steve Corino is he's still a future in his business. He's a superstar that just hasn't had a chance to be one. I mean, just dealing with him, you know, in the network and the short time that we had to do that shtick in a sense, really got to know Steve well. We traveled together a little bit when he was in TCW. He'd stay at my house, and we've kept in contact. And Steve was, you know, he blossomed towards the end of ECW as a worker, but his persona was always, you know, he was quite the character behind the cameras in the locker room and on the road and stuff like that. And he was having to blossom at the wrong time, in a sense, for the large scale, I guess, wrestling community, or, you know, the nationwide exposure that he could have gotten. He blossomed a little bit too late for that when it came down to just his work rate, which was always there, but he never had a chance to show it. Mm-hmm. And like right now, with him being involved with the AWA and wrestling for them in Japan and the UK and all over the States and stuff, I guess in the sense, independents that see him, give him mad props and total respect for his work rate now. And it's just a shame that no one's really got a chance to see that, you know, on a national television level, because he'd really probably be, you know, just a huge character. So I think he's like myself. He dealt with politics a little bit here and there, and he understands business has changed, and it's not your work rate anymore, it's your entertainment value. And, you know, he loves wrestling. He loves getting in the ring and wrestle. And then let his character come out afterwards, not the other way around. So I think the fans that keep up with independents are very, very lucky to have him as, you know, competing where he does.
Mm-hmm. You think part of it's luck, too? WWE doesn't really hire guys that aren't really, like, jacked up?
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. But, I mean, part of that comes down to, you know, again, marketability and entertainment value. Even though, you know, he can go out there and play work circles around everybody that's, you know, on half the shows. Yeah, he might not look the best, mm-hmm. but then again, I guarantee you, if you would just get around him and, you know, come up with a little scheme for him, you could sell merchandise, T-shirts, all kind of stuff, which is really what, mm-hmm. you know, a lot of companies worry about nowadays.
Right. Well, you know, you mentioned earlier Dusty Rhodes. That's the guy never had the best physique, but one of the biggest draws ever.
Oh, dude, his charisma. I mean, the many times I've had to talk to Dusty and just pick his brain, there are a lot of times I used to have to go, Dusty, all right, quit being Virgil Reynolds and be Dusty Rhodes for me. Because every now and then, you know, he'll just be his normal everyday self, and he won't be quite as charismatic as he always has been, which is who he really is. But, you know, as he got a little older, he just kind of, and wasn't on camera, he would kind of revert back to just being Virgil. Mm-hmm. And then once you got him a little bit more on stage, and the true American dream will come out in him, then you couldn't shut him up. So that's where exactly, he might not have been the best thing to look at, but by God, he believed he was. And he almost made you believe he was.
Right.
And, you know, and he flashed those pearlies and everything else and be too sweet in his shower. He actually believed that. He believed his own height, which is actually pretty good.
You got another question before I let you go?
No, not at all. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to ask a question.
All right. Thanks for calling in.
Well, dude, man, yeah, for real. It's pretty good, you know, pretty good, cool, man. It's like quick call-ins, and I'm enjoying these questions because they're pretty good stuff from the fans so far.
Yeah, we get some stuff here in the chat room too. You got a question from the fans, Intro?
Extreme Falls, he wants to know, did you enjoy the American Males gimmick?
Did you enjoy your wisdom teeth getting taken out?
No.
Well, you see, there's a yes and a no to that. There's a no because your face, if you go all four taking it all like I did, your face is swollen up, you're spitting out blood, you haven't eaten for 24 hours, but by God, they give us great pain medication, you know what I'm saying? So for as miserable as you were, you didn't quite feel it.
Yeah.
That, you know, again, the American Males was a great persona. It was a great character in a sense where, I mean, it fit me and Bagwell as a tag team, and we had great chemistry together. Marcus and I had known each other for a long time, but never wrestled each other, never teamed, and never even talked about it. But when we got put together, the first time we stepped in the ring, I mean, we didn't even discuss a whole lot. It just clicked. It just happened. And when that happens, I mean, you know something could be special. But we were with a few old school minds at the time of Kevin Sullivan and Jimmy Hart, who were trying to recreate like the old Rock Roll Express, the Fantastics. That type of persona with two young, good-looking kids who were just hungry to be wrestlers, you know, and grateful for the opportunities. Like, you know, I came back from Memphis, and next thing you know, one after World Tag Team Champions, we're on Nitro. Everything you think of is going great for us, but we weren't used right in this thing, you know what I'm saying? We could have been a lot better as though you're a bad guy team.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think it would work better as heels? Because it was kind of, at that time, like the pretty boy baby faces really didn't work anymore.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it was one of those things where even when we walked out, you heard the crowd like this big cheer of girls' voices, high-pitched, yay! And then you hear all the guys out there, boo, you know?
Right.
We get a mixed reaction because, you know, the chicks dug us, as always, and the guys were kind of envious of us because their chicks dug us. And that's the attitude we could have had, Nick. We really could have run away with it. And, but like I said, it was something you took with, like, your wisdom teeth. You had to get it done to get your break, so you kind of did it. But then again, you know, the one way to get rid of the pain of it was being the World Tag Team Champions, was being on Nitro, being on every show, because we were the only good guy team they had.
We're going to call it here. I'm sorry, man. Go on.
Oh, I was just saying you just kind of had to take it for what you had.
We're going to call here. Who is this?
It's Lagermark.
Hey, you got a question for Scotty?
Yeah, Scotty. All right, man.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I was just wondering, how did you break into the business? Who trained you to wrestle?
I actually, I played college football at Division II school, West Georgia, and broke out of there. Basically, I finished up my last year playing ball and coached for one quarter to keep my scholarship, and was just working out of a local gym, away from the campus, and met a guy, Ted Allen, who would help train Arn Anderson, Big Boss Man, Tracy Smothers. Been involved in the Georgia scene for a long time, Tennessee, Alabama, and met him at the local gym. He took me to a place in Bowden, Georgia, about 10 minutes outside of Kelton, and just started training with me. I trained with him for about 6 weeks. Had my first match, which was February 6, 1992 in Bowden, and it just, bang, went straight on from there. Got my degree. I was already wrestling. I was still in school. Got my degree in business management, but ended up pursuing wrestling and loved every minute of it. So, pretty much I got my break in a sense of training-wise, and just worked independence in Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and one guy passed from Ben Masters to Greg Price to other independent promoters to moving to Atlanta, meeting DDP and Brad Armstrong and Steve Regal and the guys at Minute Fitness, which was Sting and Luger's gym. Met those guys. They worked with me and everything else. And next thing you know, Kevin Sullivan, Jody Hamilton, Arn Anderson, some of the guys saw me working a couple shows. Randy Anderson, who was the referee at the time, all just plugged me to Bischoff and Dusty and Ole Anderson, who was booking WCW at the time, and all just kind of give me a shot on TV to work with them, and that's kind of how I got my break with WCW.
All right.
Well, thanks for... You got any other questions?
It wasn't the most exciting way of getting into it, but it was definitely the most way of building a lot of respect and just really understanding what the business meant. So when I actually got my break to come in, it was a lot faster than most guys got breaks. I think guys who were wrestling for 10 years who never even got a break yet. And, I mean, I've been wrestling a year and a half to get my first chance to impress the bosses at WCW, and did. And the next thing you know, I wouldn't have a contract, but I was wrestling nightly deal with them. Well, I was doing TV. I was doing dark matches on pay-per-views. I was doing dark matches at TV, wrestling on house shows. So it wasn't the most glamorous way of getting into it, but it built me and got me ready to, when I got my first contract, which was in '95, which was only 3 years after I started. I was, like I said, I got my first contract and then was one after World Tag Team Champions. So then it didn't start off great, but boy, it picked up right afterwards, and couldn't argue from that point on.
Another question, Larry, before I let you go?
Just wondering, how did you get into ECW as well?
All right, so
How did I get where?
in ECW. We just got to let him go because some people in the chat room saying he's going to say echo.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
Yep.
All right, buddy.
I just want to know how you got into ECW.
Basically, you know, I finished up my last part of my contract with WCW. They had promised me a pay raise, an extension, everything else, and then Jarrett came in, and a few of the bosses were on their way out. Everybody was on eggshells. The politics there were just, you know, it was a very, very unhappy place to be. And then they kind of reneged on their deal. J.J. Dillon met with me and said, you know, we're going to change our offer to you, and I just didn't like what they were doing. So I figured if they're going to do this with a guy who's been respectful to them business-wise after all this time, you know, it's time to move on. It was like when I left there before '95 and went to USWA to work for Jerry Lawler. You got to move on sometimes to move further. And me and Rob Van Dam have been friends for years, since '93, maybe late '93 or '94 since then anyway. And so we just talked it out and came up with a couple ideas for bringing me into ECW. I knew Paul Lee from WCW days. I knew Dreamer from some independents or stuff like that. So as soon as they had the idea of bringing me in, we kind of jumped on it and created it and made it happen. So I'm very, very grateful for that, too, because I loved the time I was in ECW. I mean, that place was awesome. It really was.
You talked about, you know, that was probably like the highlight of your career, the match you had with RVD on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people say, you know, they really didn't give him a time restraint. They just let him work as long as he wanted to. Was that true for you guys?
Well, let's see. Like for the pay-per-view, they actually gave us about 25 minutes, which is pretty long for a pay-per-view for a singles match. And we did, I think it was almost 20 of actual ring time. So, and of course, she had a 4-minute entrance. Him and Sandman had the longest entrance and exited in wrestling history, probably. But yeah, pretty much just because he was so good and so creative with false finishes, and he's so over. He still is with the crowd that it's just ridiculous. He's got that it character, that it persona. He has it. And the people know it, and everything else, even the bosses know it, but of course Rob's still going to be Rob. And, you know, he's not going to cater to all people, but then again, you look at WWE, and they give you 5 minutes for a TV match to say it's all you got.
Mm-hmm.
So Rob even learned how to make the most out of 5 minutes. You know, so give Rob any time, and that son of a gun could get himself over, or give him an hour, and he can still make you remember every little thing he does, just because he understands. And, you know, he did have the freedom, and the reason he had the freedom was he's that good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not much more you can really say. If he wasn't that good, they would not have given him that time.
Were you going to stay in ECW, you know, for like a long run, or, you know, before they closed?
That was the plan. Unfortunately, it was like I just had a few injuries. Rob, who, like I said, has been my best friend for a long time, broke my nose. 2 out of 3 times it's been broken.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I took a Van Terminator from him was in Kansas City, Kansas. And when a chair hit my face, it came down an angle and broke my nose. Mm-hmm. And that was like 4 weeks before the pay-per-view, maybe 5 weeks before the pay-per-view. And then we were wrestling in the Hammerstein Ballroom. Remember when they had the tag team tournaments on a Friday night in New York at Hammerstein Ballroom?
Mm-hmm.
And then they ran the same building the very next night, at Saturday.
Right.
Me and Rob were in the main event that next night, and we were fighting on the outside of the ring in the first, God, it was not even 5 minutes into the match yet, and we had we were main event with 30 minutes, and he dropped me on the guardrail outside, and instead of landing gut first like I was trying to just protect myself, I landed on my left side of my ribs and bruised 4 ribs within the first 5 minutes of the match. And they actually, just say numbers-wise, they had like 3,700 people there on Friday. They had more people buy tickets for the Saturday show. In the state show, I normally find that. But when I did that spot with him beginning of the match, you can't, New York City, ECW crowd, you can't just end the match after 5 minutes, especially with Rob, just shutting off. And again, here's where our friendship and professionalism came out. We still finished the match without missing a spot. Me with 4 bruised ribs where I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. It was so hard, but with him, we just didn't miss anything. And it made the match actually look more intense because I was in such pain. Everything we did was just magnified. And I ended up being out for about 2 months, a little over 2 months at that time with the ribs. And that's when they were having problems with money and the business side of it. The numbers were great on, you know, ratings and stuff on TV, and everything else was great, but just financially the show was really going downhill just because the money was not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when they started going to a skeleton crew, and I was injured and everything else, and so just kind of everything started, you know, just withering out with them. And unfortunately, they kind of went down in the can right after that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, my whole plan with them, we still had another 6 months playing with my character to actually turn the clap and everything else into a babyface persona. Because it was really getting over with the crowd. And the craziest thing was that night with that match with RVD there, here again, a New York City ECW crowd. Talk about, you know, when Big Show was wrestling Batista there, that crowd ate those guys alive.
Right, yeah.
I think Shannon Moore got a bad taste in his mouth about how really hardcore those fans could be.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when my music came up, and it was the clap song, you know.
Right.
As hokey as that thing was, Paul Lee came walking by me, and the gorilla position, I looked out the curtain, and 80% of that crowd was doing the clap. It was one of the most amazing things I ever saw. So I grabbed Paul, made him look outside, and he just had this big grin on his face. He goes, man, this is better than I even thought it could be. He goes, I told you it was hokey, but it would get you over, and your wrestling would just do something phenomenal for you. And so that's exactly why we did it. It was kind of poking fun at the American males and the WCW thing. And next thing you know, the crowd was with it, and, you know, then as soon as I got in the ring, they stopped my music and announced my name. Next you know, it was 4 other words, and you suck, and all this other stuff thrown at me, and, you know, so they loved the persona, they loved the clap gimmick the crowd did, but hated me,
Right.
which is, tremendous. That's the response you want.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul Lee's whole idea was after that, you know, a few more months of me being, you know, a heel, and then slowly start turning your face like we do with Corino.
Right.
You know, because I helped get Corino over in the ECW arena and turn him face by just people hating me from what I'd done before in WCW and everything else, and turning on Rob. We had done that with him to turn him, you know, babyface Steve. And then slowly it was going to be my turn to go from, they were maybe turn a few other guys heel, and then use that to turn me babyface. And just pursue the clap gimmick as, you know, something now to start selling merchandise. Because we had a couple of T-shirts and stuff to come out with. And I'll tell you what was going to be, I actually came up with it. You know those T-shirts you see, like you go to some tourist trap, you know, like I went to Hilton Head Island, all I got was a lousy T-shirt.
Right, right.
We were going to I went to an ECW show, and all I got was a clap.
There's actually a local restaurant here, Joe's Lobster Mart, and they actually sell shirts that says, I got crabs at Joe's Lobster Mart. I never understood how that got people to go and eat there, though.
But, well, you know what I'm saying, but I mean, that's the whole thing. It's such a hokey thing, but it's something, it's like a novelty item.
Oh, yeah.
And you know it's going to sell. So just to use all those points, yeah, the whole plan was for me to stay in ECW for, man, you know, as long as I could. And the fact that we were going to turn it into a babyface character, we were going to try to make it have a lot more depth and value to it. And so, man, I actually loved my run at ECW just because it was getting back to, you know, there were egos, there were politics there, but the egos and the politics didn't deal with individuals outside and in the dressing room and all that kind of thing that was really starting to inflict at WWF at the time, WCW. Mm-hmm. The egos and the politics involved the matches. Who had the best matches? You know, that's where the guys were fighting over. They weren't fighting over money and contracts and who got just to do interviews and everything else. They were fighting over who had the best match. That was the bragging rights.
Right.
That was where the egos were. You know, and that was the thing. It was like a breath of fresh air to be in that dressing room with that talent. The roster they had was just unbelievable, and to be a part of that was just a blessing for me because it really reinvigorated me. It made me appreciate the business more as a sport instead of being a business.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever talk with WWE?
I had talked to them before about coming in, but at the time I just, you know, I didn't like some of the things that they were doing. I didn't like how the eventual invasion thing was going, and just, you know, a lot of guys went in there with a lot of aspirations and a lot of hopes and everything else, and most of them were only used for a short period of time, and then, you know, as soon as they were there and as soon as they got their little runs, they were gone.
Right.
Or they weren't going to be used to, you know, full potential. And so that was one thing, you know, it went from being, you know, a viable option to get better at, to learn more about character and learn more about certain things that they themselves help create. You know, like Diesel. Kevin Nash went there as a monster that WCW couldn't do anything with, and they gave him a persona. They gave him an injection of self-confidence by letting him do certain things. They taught him how to be a personality.
Right.
And that was the one great thing about WWE. They always taught you that part of the business. You didn't have to worry about work rate, but as long as you had a personality, you're great. You could be something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went to other places. That's where you made your money, which is like WCW. And now they were the last viable option. You know, you either work with their basics or you just didn't work.
Right.
And so I saw other opportunities just to continue in a sense. That's why I wanted to work for ECW, and then I went to work for TCW with Dusty Rhodes, his group, and, you know, that was the same scenario that happened there with Dusty Rhodes, a great guy who knew how to do business properly when it came to wrestling, but when it came to actually running a business, finances, you know, and stuff of that sort, merchandising, getting TV and everything else,
mm-hmm.
Dusty didn't have the knowledge of how to do that. And so instead of having something that stayed and something that blossomed, you know, just kind of did the same thing. Once the money ran out, the company left.
Mm-hmm. Do you think a promotion like that could still exist, like a territory?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you can get a local TV deal, I mean, Memphis is still, you know, Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really don't know how strong it is on TV because we don't get it here, but I know that they still run around that area. I mean, TNA started off as a local thing out of Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
ECW still did it, you know. But there's still territories out there that if they could actually start getting stronger and stronger and maybe get some local television opportunities, if somebody could invest in them and recreate them. You know, wrestling is a very cyclical business in the first place. It always runs in cycles, you know, and right now it's down to one avenue for everybody to really either make money and be on a nationwide TV deal or to just kind of exist. And TNA is growing in that by finally getting steady pay-per-views.
Right.
You know, they ran that one pay-per-view outside of Orlando for the first time and did phenomenal. So it can happen, but it would take 5 or 6 years for it to happen. Some of them like the Maryland Championship Wrestling, some of the other groups out of like Washington and Texas and, you know, the AWA group, World One. I'm going to start doing a few things with them out of the South and Savannah and some other places we're going to run starting next year. And there's definite groups that if they can get some, you know, local coverage starting off, that can actually progress. So yeah, there's a lot of small territories. The only reason a lot of guys don't wrestle for them right now is they don't have any money.
Right.
See, like some of the big names still want big money.
Mm-hmm.
And that just ain't out there anymore, especially on independents.
Yeah.
But if they started working towards doing some of those things, and some of the guys started working in light of that, it can actually happen. So it would take a little time, but it can happen.
Mm-hmm. Any interest going to TNA?
I'd love to go there. I mean, I've actually talked to Raven a couple times, and I keep in touch with Singer, and it's just, I took about 2 years off of the business to deal with personal things. I went through a divorce. My father passed away from lung cancer. I was on the road with WCW and ECW, and averages, you know, for 13 years, basically 280 days a year on the road, traveling, wrestling. Got to see my parents once, twice a year. Came from a very strong family. And when my dad became ill with lung cancer, I broke 3 ribs again on my left side. I bruised my spleen. Wasn't able to work out. I was getting divorced. And so it was just one of those things where I had to take time away from wrestling to heal, to emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, everything in my body, in a sense, had to heal. And somebody had to be there and help take care of my father. So basically, you know, I just took time off. I got away from the business, rested, healed, got in shape, dealt with my father passing, dealt with my divorce, and just a lot of personal things I had to take care of. And that just kind of invigorated me a lot, and it would be tremendous to be a part of TNA. Got some ideas and stuff like that, but, you know, it's a company that's still growing, and they, just like WWE, the business side of wrestling is not always the best side. That's the politics, and I hate the politics of any of it because the way they want to do contracts, the way WWE wants to do contracts, the way they almost want to own you. They want to own your name. They want to own your persona. They want to own the rights to everything about you that you might have created, or even the idea you might come in with. And that's the toughest thing with it all, is them owning you, even though you're the creative part behind it. And that's the hardest thing they always want to give up and deal with that political side of it. So, you know, that's why I'm sitting back right now enjoying the fact of, you know, getting back into the business through the independents. It's given me a chance, like my MySpace, has given me a great chance to just get back in contact with the fans again.
Right. That's MySpace.com/Scotty Riggs.
Yes. And for the fans out there listening, I do that page myself. I answer everything myself. So sometimes it takes me a while to get back to you. But when I do get back to you, it's me.
Right.
It's really me. So.
Was there any fake Scotty Riggs on there before?
I don't think there's been any really fake ones, but my one site's been hacked a couple times.
Right.
And, you know, I've been hacked by one of the same cats who supposedly the same cat hacked into my site that was the same cat who hacked into John Cena's and Lex Luger's and Kelly and somebody else. So I'm sitting there going, well, at least heck, I was hacked in by, you know, the good company
right.
who I was hacked with.
Right.
So, you know what I mean, for him to hack into those people and be that ticked off with certain people, you know, we were all real. And so for him to hack into us, I'm in great company. There might be a few fake Scotty Riggs out there, but I haven't found them yet. I don't think anybody else has either, but, I mean, heck, probably there'll be some out there now. But, you know, it's good, though, just the fact that, you know, nobody wants to be me but me, and that kind of individuality is a cool thing, too.
Plus, you go there and you can see a great picture of you and Bagwell and horses.
So what are you getting to? We were laughing about this before we came on live, so, what kind of Brokeback ideas are you coming up with?
I have a strange fascination with that picture.
Well, if you have a strange fascination with that picture, I feel pretty confident in who I am and as a man and everything else. But if you got a fascination with it, I'd start to worry about you just a little bit there, young man. But myself, that picture, that whole concept came back from a 1995 thing when they first put me and Bagwell together. And Jimmy Hart actually came up with the idea of us doing a video shoot on horses, kind of like a Kerry Von Erich did in, like, mid-'80s.
Yeah.
And, again, Jimmy Hart came from the Memphis territory, came from Vince McMahon when he was really doing heavy character stuff. So Jimmy had this tremendous, just, his mind was for character development, for all kinds of stuff like that. His mind was sharp as a tack. And 10 years ago, guys on horses and stuff didn't seem that bad. Now they come out with the Brokeback Mountain movie, and of course every guy, they go, oh, what's up with this, you know? but I'm secure in me. I'm secure in who Scotty Riggs is. I mean, hell, I married a penthouse pet. Of course, she went psycho on me. But this chick like Pam Anderson with 38 triple Ds. So at the time, you know, I have no question about my masculinity, but if it piques somebody else's interest that happens to be of a, you know, male persona, male magnitude, if it piques your interest, then I'd start worrying about you. I'm fine, but if you kind of have a fascination with it, then I'd be worried.
I've been trying to get Intro to go horseback riding with me, but he's against the idea. I'll get another caller here.
I hope it's not about horses. Let's just go that far.
Caller, who are you?
This is the Fleet.
You got a question for Scotty? This is the Flea.
I do.
The Flea.
How you doing? I just want to.
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. The
cool.
interview's been fabulous.
Hey man, I appreciate that. As anybody find out, any of the shows I've done recently, it's just, man, I'm me. I'm real. I'm not going to be any type of wrestling persona. That's not what this is about. This is about, you know, it's not like catchphrases. It's about answering questions that the fan want to hear and, you know, just telling real life stories. And so that's what, you know, that's what I'm doing. I'm just being real. I'm being me. And so if I can answer your question with the best reality I can and entertain the same way with a few cute stories, that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, and that's what you've been doing.
It was a good question, Daddy-O.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to know if you had any interesting stories or anything good that happened when you were with Raven. I'll take that as
well. Coming out of the quagmire that Raven did, there's a lot of dirty stories that came out of being a flock. There's a lot of perversion that came out of being in the flock. There's a lot of probably things that if I told too in-depth on stories that came out, you know, I might get somebody chasing after me that I have no idea why they would be, except for maybe something that might have happened one night in Buffalo or one night in you know, Seattle, wherever the flock happened to be, because, you know, the one cool thing about the flock was, you know, we all got along great. Whether it was Saturn, Kidman, myself, Hammer, Lodi, Sick Boy, we all hung out as a group. We traveled as a group. Probably one of the best stories, me and Raven were traveling, and we just decided that we were going to, you know, what's the best way to say it? Without damaging the car, we were going to trash the car. And so we literally trashed the car. We ate every drive-through we could think of, and every store we stopped at. We got waters and Cokes and snacks. And when we turned the car in, it's the cleanest story I could tell you. When we turned the car in, we basically, the whole back seat, we had to put the armrest up because the trash was so overflowing into the front. So we had to put the armrest between the seats up just to keep the trash in the back. When we turned it in, it probably had about, I swear it was up into the back window with boxes from McDonald's, Burger King, bags, Coke bottles, Coke cans, beer cans, everything you could think that we drank, ate, didn't matter. Newspapers, penthouse magazines, everything was just tossed in the back, and it was just, when we turned in, the guys just looked at us, and we said, we just kind of shrugged our shoulders and said, we gotta fight the cats, gotta go. And I would have hated to have been the person that had cleaned that car. So, as probably the for radio and internet and everything else, just going to be on, that's the cleanest story I could probably tell you out of what the flock used to do on the road. Man, we lived that lifestyle. That was what was fun about it too, and we did it together. And we were a group. We weren't like the NWO that looked like a group on TV and then did their own things away from everybody else. We were, we did everything together. I mean, it was really, really cool. And that was one reason why the flock got along so good and did so well on TV and got the heat we got was, no matter what was going on, we tossed ideas from every match that Kidman had, to myself, to Raven, to Saturn, tag matches, whatever it was. We sat as a collective unit trying to figure out the best way to make everything work best for everybody in the group. And that was, there was no, that came off from Raven, because his mindset, he was in ECW for a long time. His mindset was not just for his own gain, but was for the guys around him. He wanted to see them get just as much of a push or just as much as a gain as anything else, and it was for the match's sake, not for his own ego of how he got things done.
Do you think he could be a guy that could, book a company?
Say again now?
Do you think Raven would be a guy that could actually book a company himself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, his mindset, he's like all of us. We're all getting a little older, so physically we might be breaking down a little bit, but mentally, we talked the other night, and, he's still so passionate about wrestling itself, and just has so many ideas, and he's so creative that, yeah, he could actually sit back and be in charge of a company. He could sit back and he could probably be a great agent for maybe with Paul and Tommy and ECW for Vince. Mm-hmm. He actually used to book and put together the Heat show, I believe, when he was working for Vince.
Right.
So, he's definitely versed in it. He knows about it. He could take control of a whole company and run it if he had to, as long as he didn't have to worry about the purse strings, the money of it. Because I don't think he's that. Not too many workers are that great a businessman, because they never had to focus on being a businessman. But when it comes down to creativity of making somebody else successful, yeah, Raven could definitely do that.
You get a question from the message board, Incher?
Old school. He wants to know, did you like wearing the eye patch?
Do people like proctology exams? In one sense, no, hell no, because I basically was legally blind the whole time I wore that eye patch. In that one eye, because I had an opaque lens I wore, which I could not see out of, and the patch on top of it. So, it threw my depth perception off. It took me months to be able to, in a sense, get used to not being able to gauge punches, to gauge movement in the ring. But once I did, it became enjoyable, it became a great character that, it was Snake Plissken, Kurt Russell from Escape from New York, Escape from L.A., that just worked, and it clicked. And in one sense, I liked the character, I liked the look, but actually wearing the eye patch, no. Honestly, no.
Is it funner being the heel of babyface?
It's a hell of a lot more fun to be the heel.
Yeah.
Just because you have a lot more freedom to just sit there and deal with people who, if they love you and everything else, you really got to play the sympathy. But to come out there and to turn people against you, and to, even if they're cheering for you, to really mess with their minds and everything else, it's just a lot more fun to be the bad guy, to be the villain than it is, because then you're not so structurally bound, to being one thing. When you're a bad guy, you have so many more options to get people to hate you, whether it's a verbal thing, whether it's an action that I do or an action I do to somebody. It's so much easier just to be angry than it is to be happy.
Right.
Even though they say it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile, it sells more tickets when you know how to be bad, I guess, than it does to be good. if, you know, people will pay more money to see somebody beat up a bad guy than they really want to, you know, come see a good guy smile.
Right.
So it's definitely a lot more fun to be a bad guy. I enjoyed being, you know, I was in a stereotype of being a good guy for the longest time just by being, you know, such a good-looking youngster with a great physique and a great attitude, and you know, I always had great-looking girls around me, had nice clothes, and you know, you can stop me anytime you want to. But I was just that, you know, I just looked so good all the time. It was very hard to. They didn't want me to be, you know, a bad guy. Everyone thought, you know, he's so corporate looking, he's just such a great looking guy. We don't want this guy to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like when the flock came along and the whole idea of just, you know, that anti-social, anti-establishment, you know, just being that something that was nowhere even near.
Right.
But then I actually found out, then I actually found out I'm actually closer to that persona in real life,
mm-hmm.
and it was more natural for me to be in that persona than it was to be an American male.
Right.
You know, it was just so easier just to sit back and take that deep breath and go, man, I don't have to do this, I don't have to do that. I can just do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could fill in the blank with almost anything there, except the Brokeback Mountain horse joke. But, you know, you could actually fit yourself into that mold because there was no mold being a bad guy.
Right.
So it's definitely a lot more fun to be a bad guy.
Yeah. Any chance of seeing an American male reunion?
I don't think so.
I think that's a no.
Wow! They say silences speak volumes.
That's why we lost.
That right there. Nothing against Buff or Marquez, but I think the American male scene is kind of, it died a long time ago, and I think that's one of the things. It's like, think about how they've tried. The NWO was probably one of the best things I ever hit in wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, think about how many times they've tried to revive that, and how bad does it fall on its face.
Right.
I don't think even this generation of squeaky clean people will want to hear American males, and see 10-year-old versions of Riggs and Bagwell come through that curtain, clapping their hands. I think they'd rather stick with Buff being Buff and Riggs being Riggs. You know, they don't want to. Right. Maybe, you know, as a tag team once, you know, on maybe some kind of extravaganza, grand scale once. Mm-hmm. But no long-term anything, unless
somebody, yeah, I definitely think it would make it as a good heel team.
If it came back as a heel persona that we could actually sit back and go, yeah, this does suck, but we're going to stick it down your throat and steal your girlfriends and piss off all the guys. Now, if we could do it that way, then there could be a lot of fun because then it would make money.
Yeah.
But if you try to make it like the American Males version 1 came out,
right.
I think me and Bagwell will probably kill each other before we even got to the curtain. Because one of the things we used to always say before you even exited, when our music teed off, was we used to look at each other and high five and go, man, this is, you can ask Bagwell if you ever have him on a show or if you see him or whatever.
I had him on once.
You can ask him, when we used to look at each other and high five each other and go, it ain't easy being cheesy, right before we walked through the curtain. And it was, that was definitely the cheesiest thing ever did. And that's the reason why I would never want to do that again. That would kill the territory.
What do you think about the new ECW?
As long as they keep calling it the new ECW,
right.
And, you know, I wasn't there in the creation of ECW. I wasn't there in the building of it, like the Terry Funk and Sabu and Cactus Jack and the Tommy Dreamers, the Brian Lees, those guys did, the Tazes, to actually create that.
Mm-hmm.
But to have wrestled in Viking Hall, the ECW arena, to see how the actual crowd was what made ECW, to just the goosebumps you got when you walked in that arena, the vibe you got just from that crowd, because that crowd could never ever be duplicated. You might hear the TNA being done on the TV show, but I guarantee if you went to a live event, you'd probably never hear that.
Right.
Once the music, or once the crowd started going into ECW arena, the crowd would just start doing that on their own. Or you effed up, or you can't wrestle, or the real life chants that those people did, you know, could never ever be duplicated no matter how you try it. So as long as it stays the WWE, CW, I think it gives people another option of being seen nationally, and Vince is doing a good job with that. And you know, it's a good way to, you know, do something with something, but it's actually being, you know, they should basically, I think, should let ECW just kind of, you know, rest on its legendary status. If they resurrected WCW, I don't think I want to be part of that, except for strictly business where I could collect a paycheck.
Right.
Yeah, because WCW is dead. The original ECW will live long forever, and everybody's hardcore mentality, but, you know, because it had that legendary status. It has that iconic level, that cult following, and nothing else can even say that. Not the WWE, not WCW, not even AWA, none of the other past three, quote-unquote, legendary companies. Maybe the USWA from what Jerry Lawler did there, or maybe old Texas wrestling, or maybe even Smoky Mountain Wrestling might have a bit of what ECW had, but ECW just stood on its own, and those guys really gave their blood, sweat, and tears to make that thing work. So, in one sense, ECW is good for television, but it'll never be the same. So, that's one thing I can say about that. I mean, I'd love to still have those initials on my chest, or to see them, you know, over my shoulder in a banner somewhere, to hear that music again. It'd be great, but it would just never be the same, because that crowd would still never, ever be that hot ECW crowd, which is actually what made ECW. So it wasn't the TV, it wasn't anything else that made that. It was the crowd that made that. So that's why, you know, because it's having to deal with the fans,
right,
and giving the fans proper respect. I didn't learn that towards the end of my, like, televised career, I guess you could say, when I was there and I got to experience that and experience how hardcore those fans were and how passionate they were about wrestling. Nowadays, the fans aren't there for wrestling, not there for passion. They're there to be part of an event.
right,
And, you know, they don't care about the wrestling. They care about merchandise. They care about being on TV, and they care about, you know, other things. It's, you know, and some of the wrestlers are their favorite wrestlers and stuff like that, but the wrestling fan just seems to want to be the smartest one in the room, you know, that knows more about wrestling than the other wrestling fan now, instead of being passionate about one thing in wrestling. So that's kind of an offbeat way of answering it, about caring about the new ECW. But, you know, when you understand where the original ECW came from, that's the best way to answer about the new ECW.
Mm-hmm. One of our fans here in our chat room wants to know.
I'm going to quit. I'm getting misty about that, so I'm going to quit.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody misses
I'm getting a little broke back on ECW.
Well,
that wasn't that damn funny, guys. So
that would make an interesting movie.
What, Brokeback ECW?
Right.
I'm going to let somebody else, who's one of the ECW fans, maybe answer that for you one day with a PlayStation to your head. Or
right.
let those guys throw chairs at you or something like that.
Cardboard baseball bat.
Exactly. Remember, you said that, not me. Okay, fans, so if any ECW original fans want to send a message to my MySpace or something, don't send it to mine, send it to In Your Head's MySpace. Save me the scars and pain, okay? Give it to them. I'm saying good things because I have nothing but good things, honorable, respectful things to say.
Oh, we know about ECW. Our very first guest was C.W. Anderson.
I love CW. He's one of the... He was another pioneer from ECW that just... Him and Louis Dangerously, you know, took that Dangerous Alliance with those guys. And not Francine, but... Electra.
Yeah.
You know, all those guys that were in that group there, they really took something that was kind of low-key and actually brought a lot of stability to it, so... Yeah, those cats are actually very good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad you don't see CW more often on the ECW TV.
Well, the last time I talked to him, he had hurt his back in a match with, because, you know, he had problems before with disc problems with, I think it was his kidney that he had something taken out of. And after his match with CM Punk, he had re-injured something in his back, and he's been at home just, you know, he had a bunch of doctor visits and stuff just to, you know, get a disc back in his back right. And I think he's going to make a return soon, but I know he's just been rehabbing an injury. That's why I haven't seen him lately. So in probably a few more weeks, you'll probably see him back on TV and back on house shows, hopefully. But I've heard they're even doing away with the ECW house shows.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
again, you know, that's where, you know, the ECW thing is just going to basically become this TV deal for them. And, you know, it can stand on its own, but the new ECW is just, you know, it's just part of what Vince's idea is on what's going to be marketable instead of being an actual stand on its own entity. You know, so that's the hardest thing about any of this nowadays. You're either a WWE byproduct and knows that that's what's going to get the push, or you're going to be maybe a TNA byproduct and that's what's going to get the push, and anybody else that comes into those arenas at that time from now on is just going to be someone that is used to get the WWE creation over, and that's it. You'll never get a chance to actually be, you know, yourself again.
Right.
So, that's the hardest thing about joining either one of those two companies right now. Yeah, it might be great to be on TV, but you get so boxed in. That's where the independents still, and maybe a chance to see some territories rise up again, could be the avenue to take. Because then you can still be your own boss, you can still be your own creativity.
Yeah.
And that's where guys actually in this industry grow, is by being their own. You know, not being somebody else's.
With only the WWE and TNA, is it harder for guys to really make a living in wrestling now? And, you know, get a big break?
To work the independents, yeah, I guess, yeah, because a lot of the independents and stuff like that, you know, it's like I'm dealing with a couple guys, Ronnie Angel in Washington wants to book me in some shows out there, but to go from Hilton Head, basically Savannah, Georgia, where we'll be flying out of, or even just Atlanta, say, to go cross country to the state of Washington, to work for the group that he runs out there. You gotta book air flight, you gotta take care of hotel, and I mean there's a lot of different ways that you got to deal with things that way. There's a group, High Definition Wrestling in Ohio, that is just starting off and, wanting to book, other wrestlers from around the country, and it's just for those independents to be able to, in a sense, afford to bring in wrestlers, and afford to pay them what they're worth and what they can draw for you. It's harder that way. It can be done, but, you got to work together to make some of these groups and stuff successful. Mm-hmm. And once they start becoming successful, then the independents can start paying more money, can actually start making other wrestlers that are on the road a lot, actually earn a living at just wrestling.
Right.
But it just, it's just going to take effort on everybody's part if they want to do it that way. Otherwise, you can actually, you can overprice yourself and get a few guys to pay it. And as long as you got a few guys willing to pay you overpriced money once or twice, here or there, you can probably make a living at it for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. But in the long haul, if you work, just in a sense, business-wise, if you do business, everybody will be profitable. But if you just do things for yourself, that's where everybody's going to continue to run into problems. So anything else, for anybody to make money, to make a living, to be successful, be happy, you basically got to work together as a part of a team, and that goes from A to Z. But if you're in it for yourself, just to make money yourself, of course you've got to make money for yourself. That is what else with it. You don't do it just to live off fame, because fame's not real anyway.
Right.
You can't eat your breast clippings. You can't eat your memories.
Right.
So you gotta do business. But then again, you still gotta do business smart.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you want to tell your fans out there before I let you go? Yeah, you know, over an hour.
I just want to say, hey, come visit me on MySpace. Again, MySpace/Scotty Riggs. And for the people in North Carolina, the 18th this weekend, for my fans out there that listen in the North Carolina area, I'm going to be there wrestling Dr. Tom Pritchard this Saturday night. Savannah, Georgia in January will be there. Orangeburg, South Carolina, beginning of January will be there. And, just keep your eyes open. Maryland, Washington, Texas, I got a bunch of things at the beginning of the year. Don't be afraid to join MySpace, to comment to me, talk to me, because I'd do my best to contact you. And I just give mad props to all the fans out there who just respect wrestling the way it is, and just don't get caught up in the entertainment of it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Still love wrestling, because that's what honestly puts asses every 18 inches. It's not being a part of an event, it's still there to watch wrestling. So keep it real, and it'll stay real to you.
Dr. Tom better be wearing his In Your Head button.
I don't know what Dr. Tom's going to be doing. I haven't seen him in the ring in a while, of course. He's probably one of the craftiest veterans I've ever seen, because he lived through Smoky Mountain. He's lived through USWA. He even lived through being a body down, I believe. Yeah. So, which is like a early version of American Males, I guess. I don't know, or a late version, or some sort of version, precursor version of American Males.
It's the blonde version.
Exactly. So I have a feeling he may want to, take some cheap shots at me for that, but who knows? I can't wait to actually, I've never wrestled before, so I'm actually looking forward to it. And they've actually got on the poster, some on my MySpace site, where it's got WCW, ECW star, American Male Scotty Riggs versus former WWF superstar Dr. Tom Pritchard. So we got a Ted Turner version, Ted Turner Paul Lee version versus a Vince version. So this could be very interesting for the North Carolina wrestling fan to see what political influence is going to come out as victor on this one.
Right.
So it could be some internet bragging rights for this one here, for all those you know, Glory Days, WWF fans, not WWE, WWF, and then you got your WCW, ECW fans. So I think you should, you know, if you can't be there, talk to somebody who was and see what happens, because it's going to be very interesting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. We really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Well, man, I've enjoyed it, man. I've heard nothing but really good stuff about your show from a lot of people on the, you know, on the MySpace where they saw my banner up there and stuff like that. So, even though it was up, down, change, left, right, eye patch, horse, sunglasses, you know.
I think you have a record for the most banners I've made.
Well,
and you're on with Kamal on the website right now.
You might have to go back and check that out. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. That
might be a record I might want to, you know, I might want to hold on to that for my glory days. Kind of like being in Pro Wrestling Illustrated's 50 Most Beautiful People.
Right. They could add that to the poster.
People forgot that in 1999 when I was part of the Flock, I was part of the 50 Most Beautiful People.
Well, that's weird that it was when you were in the Flock. You think it would have been, you know, prior to the Flock days?
Well, I don't know. I just had that ruggedness to me.
Right. That's what I get.
I didn't have that broke back. Just that ruggedness.
Right.
So, you know, you like that broke back thing. I like the rugged thing. So, and the chicks did rugged. You know, the chicks dig bad guys. Chicks dig scars.
Right.
You know, so I don't know what guys dig, but I know what chicks dig.
I get
that's the word for me. Well, guys, I enjoyed it, man. It was really an honor and a pleasure for me to be on your show. And again, just, you know, any other time you want me back on, it'd be my pleasure to come back on. So, and I look forward to just getting back together and getting in contact with the fans again, because that's what I want to do. I'm only 35, so got a lot of years still in wrestling, so you never know where I'm going to end up. You never know, because I'm in contact with a lot of guys here, there, and still trying to do business. And like I said, I'm starting back off this Saturday night in the North, so it's going to be fun.
This is the most missed wrestler in recent history, and I happen to be the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. You're listening to me right now on InYourHeadOnline.com, because you know where the action's at.